What do Expedia, Zillow.com, EXP, and T360 all have in common? They are all disruptors of technology. And so we have our guest today, Mitch Robinson, who has worked for all four of those companies, and he's got a history with visionaries, innovators, and disruptors. And we're going to go through what you need to know to face the changing industries that are coming up in the next 5 to 10 years and how you can buck the trend and embrace innovation. Stay with us and subscribe for future videos. Let's check it out. All right, I am here with Mitch Robinson with Real Estate News, and we are going to talk about your journey through what some might say are a series of what people consider real estate disruptors, and not just real estate disruptors, but also tech disruptors, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. Also, travel disruptors.
Travel disruptors. That's right. So, take me back to what was it, 94? When did you join Expedia?
Yeah, I joined Expedia back. It's back around 2000. 2000, when people were still using dial-up modems, believe it or not, back then.
Right. And what did you do before that?
Before that, I was believe it or not, a local guy in television. I spent about 12 years in television in small markets, running kind of marketing, promotion, programming. My wife still reminds me, I famously was with Fox when Fox first started, and I remember telling important people, and I worked for a Fox affiliate, yeah, that Simpsons cartoon thing is never going to make it.
Yeah.
Like, here we are, like 26 years later or whatever it is. So it shows you what I know.
Yeah. So you started with Expedia. What was your job title there? And how did
I was one of the original people hired to run public relations, PR, so dealing with the media. So it was really interesting because I was a fairly young guy earlier in my career, but because when you do PR, you kind of work with the executive team. So I worked with these really important people, many of which had come from Microsoft, because Expedia had spun off from Microsoft right when I joined. So I kind of got to be in the inner circle, even though I probably wasn't qualified to do so when I started.
Yeah. Okay. And so Rich Barton was one of the founders, probably one of the head guys over at Expedia.
Rich was a guy at Microsoft at the time when they were making a CD-ROM about travel, and he went to probably Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer, I think, as I remember, and he was like, the CD-ROM thing is just going to be a bunch of pictures people look at. What about this internet thing? Maybe we could sell some travel online.
Yeah. And so did you, when you started working at Expedia, you started working with Rich and some of the other executives?
Yeah, I remember Rich in the days where, for instance, he had a chin-up bar at his office, kind of door jam, and he would challenge executives to do chin-ups before or after a meeting.
Wow.
Yeah, thankfully he didn't ask me.
Yeah. And what was that like? Did you guys get a lot of flack from travel agents?
Oh yeah, because back then you have to remember that was a time when most airline tickets were paper tickets still, right? It wasn't like it is today where you just see it on your app and you go through the airport. So it was really thought of like innovation and disruption. Like before that, you only kind of went to a travel agent, even for an airline ticket, which is kind of hard to conceive of today. Or maybe you called one airline, you'd call Delta or Northwest Orient or whatever at the time, and you'd say, "Do you have any flights that like go to Minneapolis?" Like that's what the world was like back then.
And what did what did the good travel agents do to stay relevant and pivot in their business?
Yeah, well, the good travel agents are still around today, and they work with people on experiences.
Mm-hmm.
An airline ticket is just a commodity, right? It's just like how, it's a bunch of variables: price, time, location. But to have a true vacation, that's something totally different. And we used to talk about that at Expedia a lot. There's a big difference between a trip. A trip is to go see your mother-in-law.
Yeah.
right? A vacation is an experience, and there's a zillion great travel agents today that people still use to put together great packages.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I read that Expedia was 65% was acquired by what was it? AI.
IAC, which was predominantly Barry Diller, who's an entertainment titan, which is kind of funny because, in my earlier past, I worked for a Fox station and Barry Diller ran Fox.
Yeah.
So, I got to finally meet Barry Diller one day. And like, I remember being at Expedia, he came through the halls and people said, "Hey, Mitch, I bet you'd like to meet Barry Diller." And I just went up to him and I said, "Yeah, I was almost apologizing. I was like, I was in Peoria, Illinois, the Fox affiliate." And one of Barry's people said, "Did you have to go to Peoria, Barry?" And he's like, "Yeah, I had to go to all of them."
Yeah. Right. So, and then he takes it public, or did he take it before that?
Um, Expedia was part of Microsoft, which was a public company, and
Okay.
then they kind of sold off their share to IAC, but Expedia was a public company by that point.
Okay, got you. And eventually he, sells. I think it's for a valuation of 3.6 billion to TripAdvisor. Is that right?
I think actually he bought TripAdvisor, kind of combined a bunch of travel properties. So
Okay.
uh, TripAdvisor, Hotels.com. Eventually, they picked up Orbitz. They picked up Travelocity. So it's hard to tell what's not part of the Expedia family these days.
Right. So what was the big acquisition where Rich Barton left after that?
Rich left not so much due to an acquisition, but not too long after Barry Diller kind of took over.
Okay.
There were a bunch of Expedia folks that stayed for a while, and then they kind of moved on and retired for a bit. As I jokingly said, they rode their bikes around France and had families and did all the things they didn't get to do when they were younger. I wasn't quite in that situation, so I kept on trucking.
Yeah, and so I saw that basically he took extended early retirement, and then Zillow was started in what year was that? 2003.
Yeah, something like that. I'm trying to think if they just had their 20th anniversary. So right around there. And for a long time, Zillow was this top secret thing. Rich Barton and Lloyd Frink, who worked together at Expedia, everybody knew they had an office, and there were lots of rumors about what their next thing was. There was
Yeah.
talk it was going to be like photo sharing, and there were a bunch of other kind of rumors out there of what the Expedia guys were going to do next.
Now, okay. So did you stay at Expedia and then go directly to Zillow at that time?
I stayed at Expedia a little bit longer and worked for Dara, who ended up then moving over to run Uber. And then I left, and I had a gap of about 4 or 5 years where I actually went and worked for the city of Tacoma, Washington, and helped run their cable system that
Wow.
competed against Comcast, which was a whole other story about competing a city entity that ran its own telecommunications competing against the private sector, until one day I got a call from the Zillow people and they said, "Hey, you used to work with some of us at Expedia. Do you want to talk to us?"
So yeah, so you have had an entire career of working with innovators and disruptors. I mean, pretty much the entire time, right?
Yeah. I think you could say the same thing about Glenn Sanford at EXP and
Mhm.
other folks like that. And there's always that fine line, Ryan, between like disrupting and innovating. I think if you innovate in the right way, you're probably also going to disrupt. But I always wanted to work at places that were innovative and progressive and looking at new ways of doing things. Even going back to the very beginning of my career, like now it's a slam dunk to watch a local Fox TV affiliate. But back then, if you remember, it was like ABC, CBS, and NBC, and here we were with this new network taking a chance. So even very early in my career, like that's the kind of thing that charged me up.
Yeah, yeah. So at this point, how did you got the role from some of the people at Zillow? Were you working with? Did you know Barton very well and Spencer? What's Spencer's last name? Radcliffe.
Spencer Raskoff.
That's
That's
all.
who I interviewed with, and I still remember today coming into his office. I knew him a little because Spencer had been founded Hotwire, which was another travel site that Expedia had acquired. And I remember saying to him, I'm like, I'm not sure. Like everybody I know in real estate is kind of divorced and eating off a hot plate. This seems like a bad business. And he's like, well, what did you know about travel before you started? And we think we're onto something here. So I came aboard as employee 300 in a time when Zillow was kind of all about the consumer. There wasn't really a lot of people thinking about how to engage with agents or MLSs or the industry, and that's what I did.
Yeah. So I know the last time we talked, we covered this, and I did the same thing with Jay Thompson when I interviewed with him. I've gone through mind shifts throughout the years, right? Where I was, very suspicious of Zillow and all the portals. They're trying to take our jobs, or they're trying to take our market share, sell our leads back to us. And you and I talked a little bit about this before. In full disclosure, I am a Zillow Flex agent. We have a amazing partnership with Zillow. I went into that very cautiously, having given my history. And, they have done... Look, here's the deal. This is what I've come to realize is that if it's not going to be Zillow, it's going to be something else. Okay. It's going to get disrupted somehow. All right. Well, at least with Zillow, they have brought something to the table other than, what others may say, selling your own leads back to you. No, we're one of the highest performing, if not the highest performing Zillow Flex team in Austin. And the reason why is because Todd Stevens is our Zillow rep, and he's an amazing guy. He provides us a lot of training, a lot of statistics. He shows us what other people are doing, and it's made our business better as a whole, not just in the leads that we take from Zillow, but in every other aspect. So my question to you would be, when you look at the progression of Zillow, what makes an agent or a team successful? What makes someone buck the trend of a disruptor? What makes a good partner? And how should team leaders be thinking about this? And we're going to get to the rest of your career too, but this is, to me, is really interesting.
This is a great topic. First of all, when it comes to Zillow, during my time there, I used to say to agents, if you can get ROI, return on investment, buying bus benches, buy more bus benches. Right. Zillow's not right for everybody. Realtor's not right for everybody. The agents that are successful working with vendors or partners, the one key is they kind of measure things, first of all.
Yeah.
Right. You know what success is like. And you also have to think of it in terms of a timeline. And I don't care if you're doing an old school ad in the penny saver or you're using Zillow, you can't measure it by the first day or the first week. You have to set a timeline and kind of be all in. Yeah. And then you can kind of get some idea. The other big benefit, I think, Ryan, is when agents work with companies like this, just like you said, you've kind of gotten smarter working with smart people. Yeah. And you can find smart people in your own, your brokerage, your community, your MLS. But sometimes working with people kind of out of your comfort zone, that's kind of a cool thing, and you can learn things from these people and then apply it to your own business.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and when you said, you hit the nail on the head as far as like measurements concerned. No one measures analytics better than Zillow, right?
Yeah, I mean, like we used to say at Zillow, and something I've kind of carried through in everything I've done is kind of data rules. Yeah. And the only thing that makes data better is when you are taking the time to look at the data and try to use it to move your business forward.
Yeah. And so, Zillow went from a consumer facing site where the consumer was basically the one that, I guess, they shifted more to a brokerage model in some aspects. But what would you say to the people that say, okay, they're going to disrupt. Well, they already have disrupted the industry, but they're not. It's not the same as a disruption that Expedia did to the travel business, right?
Yeah, I think they're a little different. Expedia was disrupting to a degree kind of travel agents where again if you were a great travel agent you were fine.
Yeah,
Zillow primarily makes its money from real estate agents being successful.
that's right.
So I've seen no sign. I mean, they obviously dabbled in Zillow offers, and that was a whole different thing. But for the most part, Zillow does well when agents do well.
Yeah,
And so when I was there, I'm a big believer, even more than real estate. The phrase "go local" means a lot to me.
hmm,
I just love local business people, whether it's a real estate agent or a local bookstore. That's what's always charged me up. And I still like the idea that even companies like Zillow, if they're doing what they're supposed to do, they're making local agents successful.
yeah, yeah. And your job was it public relations there?
No, I helped people like Greg Schwartz figure out how to talk about Premier Agent, how to work with MLSs, how to figure out how we're going to talk about when we announced we're acquiring Trulia, which was a big deal. But I spent 30, 40 weeks on a road running events for agents, running our internal events, and also just figuring out kind of what were the right ways to kind of introduce things to the agent community.
Like the technology part, different types of partnerships.
Yeah, everything from adding more MLSs, which people did on our team, to figuring out how to get the most value out of Premier Agent, to teaching agents that going out and getting reviews was an important thing back in a time where even there was a time where even getting reviews was thought of as a truly disruptive thing. Like, oh my God, getting reviews, why would I want to do that? And what if it's a bad review? That used to be a huge flashpoint.
Yeah, and let me just be clear because it sounds like Zillow is a partner of mine, and I appreciate the partnership. But I'm not advocating agents go all in or nothing on Zillow. I'm a big believer that everyone should have their eggs across different baskets. It's just been very helpful to me. But we also work on SEO, getting Google placement and all that type of stuff. I think to run a successful business, you have to have several irons in the fire, and you shouldn't have everything in all eggs in one basket.
No, I often describe it as if you have a soundboard in front of you with 1,000 different levers. Do you want a
Yeah,
little more bass? Do you want a little more vocal? And when you pull that lever up, you look above to kind of see on the meter how it's doing, and you listen to it.
yeah.
And if you may love drums, but if you put that all the way to the top, you're going to drown out something else, and your return is not going to be as good. So it's the same with marketing for agents today. Use what works. Don't overspend on that, or your ROI is going to go down. And it's always good to try pulling up some of those other levers and see if something else, like having a marketing mix that's spread out a little bit, is always a good thing.
Yeah, and I think these days, in order to be an effective marketer, you got to really go with what the trends are in the marketplace, as well as what you can afford. Right? I have avoided doing television and billboards. And I know it can be effective. It's just it's so cost prohibitive, right? Whereas I know that we can do so much stuff on Facebook and Google retargeting and social media, and like it's a low barrier to entry with cost. And then working with PR firms and doing vlogs like this, right?
Yeah, well, I know you've been interviewed by like local TV stations and things.
Yeah,
There's a huge value from my time being in television. Local television stations today, those news departments are working with, like, the resources just aren't there anymore. They're working with less reporters, and they have more news holes to fill. And it used to be a morning news show in a local market, whether it was Peoria, Illinois, or Austin. They'd have maybe a half hour or an hour morning news show. Now it's 90 minutes or 2 hours, and these producers are like, how are we going to fill that time? And for you as an agent, like, most agents don't understand that in many markets, if you just call a station, you can actually call them,
Yeah.
send them an email and say, hey, I have a wealth of data, or I can give you some trends. Many of these stations are like, oh, thank goodness there's
Yeah.
somebody that's giving me a shortcut to provide information to our viewers.
That's right. I mean, I have a PR folder with everyone that has interviewed me. And anytime something comes up, I send it to them. And 9 times out of 10, they don't reply because they don't like it. But that one time that they do, it pays in dividends. So, okay, you left Zillow and you went immediately to EXP. What year was that? Or to get that right?
I went to EXP. I was at EXP for about 4 years. I joined in 2017, and I was there until about halfway through 2021. And I came to EXP at a time where I think we had about 1,800 agents when I joined. We weren't in every state back then. And, EXP is an example of a different kind of innovation. And also, the growth for a company like that, I was just talking to someone the other day, and I was like, it was kind of like a railroad car, a train going down the track so fast that you thought at any time a wheel was going to fall off and the whole thing was just going to derail.
Right.
It really felt like that in my era there.
And what was your role there?
I was ended up as the CMO there, so heading up marketing for everyone there, and predominantly that was kind of getting a lot of agents that are obviously independent contractors that wanted to promote the company to try to kind of get on message just a little bit, to allow them to keep their individuality and what they do on a local basis, but also help them like understand what the company is, what the company isn't, what are the right numbers, and how to talk about it.
So again, we're talking about another innovator, another disruptor of sorts that in a long list of them. What do you think? I mean, besides the downline, because I'm not, that has something to do with it. But what other factors do you think EXP has had that's made them successful?
Well, I think Glenn Sanford, the founder, early on, he's embraced a number of different kind of types of technology. He was the one from day one said we're just not going to have offices, and he brought agents into a virtual world. So
Yeah.
when you even wanted help with something, your avatar got in line versus sitting on hold for a half hour,
Yeah.
and you could talk to other people while you were in line as an avatar. He had that kind of vision. He had a vision using a workplace, I know you're familiar with from Facebook, as a
Yeah.
way to engage. So I think it was a combination of technology and also just being willing, opening up your mind to what hasn't been done yet, which I think is a theme with a lot of these kind of visionary people that I've worked with. Is it's not so much I think they're like, I want to disrupt. I think it's more like they have a thirst for new ways of trying things and seeing if they can be effective.
Well, and I like what you said earlier, which I think is a pretty good quote. Which you said something like, "I think if you innovate enough, you're destined to be a disruptor." What'd you say?
Yeah. If you innovate, you kind of naturally disrupt. But I don't think the people I've worked with, at least, it's not like, oh, I have some evil plan to disrupt. Disrupt is, to me, is kind of a negative term. It's kind of a result sometimes of innovation. Innovation is a fantastic thing. And listen, Remax innovates every day. Keller Williams innovates every day. Many of the major companies, you innovate every day. That's a great thing.
No, and I didn't mean it like that, but I think it's a byproduct. Is that if you innovate enough, you're going to disrupt, right? And I think that's very smart. I coached with a very popular recruitment coach, and one of the things he told me that one of his main guys was with EXP. One of his main clients was EXP, and he said, of course it's all confidential. He wouldn't tell me who, but he's like, this guy is like, they're not really understanding the downline. It's not working. And he said, stop talking about the downline. Talk about what you do for your team, your brokerage, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the agents that I saw at EXP that were most successful, first of all, their number one thing was be a productive agent. Because
Yeah.
if you're not doing that, nothing else matters. But when it comes to recruiting or making someone aware of an opportunity, the best way to do it is when you're sitting across the table from them and you naturally want to have that conversation. There's
Yeah.
other ways to do it as well, but I'm one of those big believers, just like I think the true benefit of an agent working with the consumer is sitting across the table. I think agent to agent, it works the same way.
Yeah, and I do want to say here for anybody that's watching this, because this is very important. Um, I am not going anywhere. If you work with the XP, totally respect that. I'm a complete independent brokerage. I love what I do, and this is one of the questions I get when agents interview me. Are you gonna sell? Are you gonna join anywhere? And I'm like, what? Everyone has their price. My price, this is if I were acquired, right? My acquisition price is way more than I'm worth, right? So
I always say there's a great brokerage for everybody, and that includes independent brokerages that are the heart and soul of this business.
yeah, and I'm in a town with like Austin where people embrace the independence. They embrace the boutiques. Even like Keller Williams is from here, but you have a lot of more agents. They don't have as much market share as you would think. So okay, you left EXP after 4 years and you went to T360, right?
Yeah, I ended up at T360, and some folks don't know what T360 is, but if you think of like McKinsey being the worldwide leader in consulting for big companies, T360 kind of has that space in the real estate space. So they work with many large companies. As I often joke, sometimes those companies don't always get along so well with each other, but T3 has always had this really amazing ability to kind of work with all, because they really pride themselves. We pride ourselves on integrity and confidentiality, and yet we have a lot of expertise to help a lot of different levels of folks hopefully be more successful.
Yeah, and they also work with associations.
Yeah, associations, MLSs,
Yeah.
you name it.
And so, what was your job there?
Well, I joined T360 to get Real Estate News started.
Okay.
We're part of Real Estate News, and Stefan Swanepoel, who is talk about a visionary, he
Yeah.
definitely goes in that group, right? Along with Jack Miller, who's based right in Austin, where you are.
Yeah.
And these two gentlemen are people I had known kind of throughout my career, wherever I was, and they kind of found me and said, we think there's room for another kind of news service. And
Yeah.
kind of like my talk with Spencer Raskoff at Zillow, where I kind of made fun of him, saying all the real estate agents I know are in trouble. I said, wait, you guys want to go into journalism? Like, that's another horrible field that's not doing very well. Like,
Yeah.
let's have a deeper talk about this.
But I think there's space for it, right?
Listen, there's like 1.5 million real estate agents. There's 100,000 plus brokerages out there. And one of the things, honestly, Ryan, I learned at Expedia was choice is a great thing,
Yeah.
right? Expedia was about, hey, instead of calling one airline, I'm going to be able to see all of them on one screen. That's giving choice. And I think based on how many brokerages and how many agents there are, there's room for another choice in real estate media too. There's some great companies that do it, but I think we have shown even in our first month or so that we have a distinct voice and another way of looking at things that seems to be resonating with people.
So tell me what is your focus? I mean, obviously it's real estate, but how do you guys differ from the Real Deal or Inman? And what is your focus there that might differ from some of the other publications that we know about?
Yeah, I think for the most part, what we're trying to do is be another voice by one is being a little more straight down the middle and get to the point.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And not, we talk about we're trying to lift the industry up and start with positivity. Now, we're going to cover the news. There are layoffs. There's other things going on that are less than exciting, but we certainly cover those. But we're going to start with a positive place with everybody we talk to. And we're also not looking for those gotcha moments. We're looking to do positive things. We just started a feature the last couple of weeks called Agents of Change,
Mm-hmm.
where we're focusing on agents doing amazing things in their communities. And sometimes you hear about these stories on and off, but to consistently shine a light on folks that maybe haven't had a light shine on them, that another way that maybe we can lift the industry up just a bit.
Yeah, and are you using the power of T360's analytics to feed into that journalism?
Yeah, we have access to all of that. So, for instance, the T360, the trends report is coming out right now, and we'll be doing exclusive excerpts from the trends report. It's an expensive thing to buy, and we'll be giving some analysis of what those trends are and giving some short excerpts. So that's really helpful. When the SP200 comes out and things like that, we have the ability to do a little deeper dive and offer some maybe real-time analysis versus what the reports are, which is a little bit more long-term. We'll look at how it applies to what's going on right now.
That's awesome. So the writers on real estate news, do you how does that differ? Do you have like real estate agents that kind of guess write just like Inman does, or?
No, well, first of all, our editorial team is we're independent from what T360 does because they have clients. We don't want to know who clients are,
Yeah.
anything like that. So we have our own independent writers. We have a few contributors. We're doing it a little differently. Rather than people just raise their hand and say, I want to write something, we're
Yeah.
kind of coming up with kind of franchises that we're doing. And then we find folks that are appropriate for it. So, for instance, we have another franchise called Agent Decoded, and that's we're looking for some people to help explain things. So we have Renee and Jeff Funk out of Orlando,
I
and they're
know
going
them
to
very
write
well. I just
a
saw her a
lot
couple weeks
about
ago.
yeah, they're going to write about how do you build a team, and when you're husband and wife, do you still talk about work over the Thanksgiving turkey and
Yeah.
things I think a lot of agents would that's very relatable to a lot of folks. So we're looking for people that maybe haven't written before,
Yeah.
right? Because we want to show some diversity and some new voices, and they kind of fit into the structure of things that we think are important.
Yep. Okay, so you got a decades long career with innovators, visionaries, disruptors. What is the one common characteristics of all of these guys that people can try to adhere to?
I think it's a combination of being strategic and not having fear.
Yeah.
These are people that are willing to try things. So that's kind of where the no fear comes in. Yet they're not just completely guessing. They're using data when they can find it or when they get it, and they're trying to be strategic in measuring, just like an agent does.
Yeah.
I talked about pulling all the levers up and down. In my early years at Expedia, I can remember when we still were like, oh man, that's a horrible name. Nobody knows what Expedia means. We're going to have to change the name. No one's coming to the site.
Yeah.
Right. Well, now Expedia is just part of our language. The same with Zillow. So you kind of have to have no fear and be strategic and use the data. But plus, you have to have some good instincts too. It's
Yeah.
kind of it's a soup of all of those things.
Gotcha. And then final question is, what about agents that fear change and innovation? What would you say to them?
Well, unfortunately, we're in a time in real estate where it appears that there are agents that are haves and have-nots.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say there's a lot of ways to be one of the haves. And I would just kind of like open your ears a little bit. And I think the good news is there's no sign to me that real estate agents are going away.
Yeah.
Like they're the most important local business person you have in your community. Right. Yeah. So have some confidence in what you do, but also don't be like a travel agent of all, and don't make yourself a commodity. If
That's
you
right.
provide real value, you're going to have a great career.
That's right. Work hard, provide value, and look for opportunities is what I always say. Well, Mitch, it's been a pleasure. Where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Mitch Robinson 27. That's always a good place to see what's going on. And also realestatenews.com. Check us out.
Well, thank you so much for being on our program.
Thank you, Ryan. Truly appreciate it.